Welcome to the Post Shift Podcast, your raw look at the hospitality industry, brought to you by SHC.
What is happening, Post Shifters? Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. I am a day late again because I'm a day late. Last week I talked about transitioning from a staff to a manager. This week I want to chat about transitioning from being a manager to an owner. It's a big step. And a lot of industry people, when they're passionate and they really want to stay in this industry, it's a progressive step. Transitioning from being a manager, running a place, being a general manager, being a group manager, to owning your own place is a big step, and one that most people see as a progression in their career, which is fantastic. I've owned a couple of places, I've consulted on a couple of places, I've done a lot of stuff. So I think I have a little bit of experience on that transition. I transitioned from being a manager of a bar to owning a place when I was 32, 33. And I don't regret the experience, but looking back, and I'm sure this is just hindsight's 2020, hindsight's a bitch when it comes to that sort of stuff. I wasn't ready and prepared to run my own place. And I should have stopped and taken a breath and realized that while my set of skills then and there was like building teams, like was marketing and getting the place busy and get the place full and keep that sort of thing. The back end stuff, the financials that I talk so much about now, I didn't fully comprehend. Now I could read a P&L, like I could tell you what my labor was, I can tell you this, I can tell you that came out of working at Moxie's, but my fundamental understanding of how we get to that number, how we get to that budget, how we get to those costings was lacking at that time. And it was just youthful exuberance, and you think you know everything at 32. From the age of 22 to 35, you think you know everything. I've learned a lot in the last couple of years, going back to school, really focusing on understanding that back-end accounting into things, like how do we get to the labor point we need to get. So if you're looking at transitioning from a manager to a owner, couple of things that I want to cover. One, most of us are hard workers. That's the reason why we've excelled in our careers and we're ready to open our own place. But you have to understand that you don't want to buy yourself a job. This is the big thing. There's a lot of people in the industry that get into the industry, open places, passionate, work the floor every day. What's your exit strategy? Like, did you just buy yourself a job? Are you buying yourself a job as a general manager and you're getting paid exactly what you were getting paid before because you're basically breaking even in the restaurant? Are you working 80 hours a week in your restaurant? Do you have an exit strategy? Now, when I say exit strategy, I'm not saying to sell the place, but how do you progress? How do you grow? If you bought yourself a job, very, very rarely, if you buy yourself a job, you very rarely can expand your business. You can very rarely focus on the macro of your business. It's definitely day-to-day sort of stuff. Empowering someone and being able to, and building your business around a team where you can actually put responsibilities on someone else, I personally think is one of the biggest things that you need to do if you get into business. Whether it be a partner that you can split duties with, but buying yourself a job handcuffs you to that business. If you're not there, it falls apart. If you walk away or you want a vacation, everything goes to shit. So handcuffing yourself to the business is counterintuitive to what you really want to do. Now, a lot of people don't get into the restaurant business thinking they're going to open up 2 or 3 places, 4 places, 5 places, and expand. Some people are just happy with their one little piece of slice of heaven. But that being said, if you buy yourself a job, your P&L at the end of the day doesn't reflect actual business. And what I mean by that is if you bought yourself a job and you either, 2 ways, you either pay yourself a salary, which is what I always tell people to do. If you're going to be working, if you're going to be a general manager of your own place, pay yourself a salary, don't just take profits. And this is why. If you just take profits at the end of the year, whatever you make, that's what you take. The bad thing with that is that it becomes very apparent when you go to sell the business that nice black figure that's at the bottom of your P&L doesn't actually exist. Because if you had to hire someone, as I was saying, hire someone to run your place, or I was buying a place and I had to hire someone to run the place, it would cost more than what's on that bottom line. And I've walked into so many businesses and looked at so many profit and loss statements and looked at so many cash flow reports, and and you ask, like, why is your labor so low? And they're like, oh, well, we just take profits in a year. I'm like, okay, so, but you're doing 2 jobs that probably would be getting paid anywhere from $35,000 to $50,000 a year full time. And that's what you're getting paid that. So really, if you've got a manager, if you've got a floor manager, if you've got a restaurant manager, your P&L is actually in the red by $100,000. And so that's where I sort of like look at the buying yourself a job and handcuffing yourself to the business, because you can't look at anything else. All you're thinking about is the day-to-day operations. And the day-to-day operations as an owner, and I'm not saying straight away, like after the first 2 years, day-to-day operations should be passed over to someone else, and you should be focusing on the macro of your business, the marketing, the social media, the sort of culture building that you want to do with your staff. There's just a big thing. And then, of course, expanding, opening other venues, buying other venues, that sort of thing. So handcuffing yourself to the job is probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I give to people, because it's great to be there and passionate and touching tables and kissing babies. But at the end of the day, handcuffing yourself means you can't take vacations. You can't get sick. Like, you have a death in the family, sorry, you either close the restaurant down completely or you don't go to a funeral. So really have a think about where you want to be in 5 years' time when it comes to owning your own restaurant, and then work backwards from that. I've talked about goal backcasting a ton in other episodes. Next thing, management owners. Really, and this goes back to my intro, really fundamentally understand the back-end financials. And not just that you can read them and you know what your budgets are and you know how to align your budgets, but how do you get to that spot? How do you get to that place that you understand how to fundamentally change that bottom line? Whether it be staffing, figuring out a way to cut overtime, figuring out a way to cut costs. Like, how do you fundamentally understand cost cutting to make a better bottom line? And that is a massive thing. Once you get that sort of under your belt, you can start doing it, but really understand that, because the thing is that restaurants are slippery slopes, and you think you got good footing at the top of the slope, and then you slip, and then sure enough, you're sliding down that slope really quickly, and you go from popular, busy, and profitable to out of business in a very, very quick time. You can plugging holes is so important to see every week, see every month, see how it's progressing and fixing it as you go. Not waiting for the first quarter to be over and going, shit, we lost money. So really being plugged in and understanding how you can fundamentally change your costs and cut costs and give a same sort of experience without running into a shit ton of issues. And finally, my third point. What was my third point? I had a third point. Surround yourself with the right people. This is going to come from a personal experience. If someone comes into your bar or your restaurant and is like, you know what, you would be a fantastic owner, I want to partner with you, I want to give you money. People never just want to give you money to let you run your own place. That doesn't happen. People want their money back eventually. People want to make profit on that money. That's a lot of pressure for a 30-something kid or a 20-something kid to understand that money comes with a whole bunch of ties. And when you're dealing with people with lots of money who want to get into the restaurant business because they think it's glamorous, they have a very gleaned over version of how a restaurant actually runs. And that's where I was saying, learn your financials to the nth degree so that you can understand when you talk to people how you're going to make more profit, how you're going to get their money back. Surrounding yourself with good people comes down to your staff, your co-managers. Be transparent. Don't think that because you're the owner you have to do everything. Bring in another staff member or a manager as a small intellectual IP partner so that you have someone who has skin in the game, who's going to put in the effort just like you. It's the hardest thing in the restaurant business is that owners get very bitter very quickly because they want people to work and be passionate as them. But when they don't have skin in the game, it's extremely hard to motivate and push people outside of money to want to push and give the same experience that you give and you want. Doing that is really, really tough. So surround yourself with the right people from the top to the bottom. Get the best dishwasher you can and make sure the people that are saying that, oh, we're going to make tons of money together, truly understand that that's going to take some time, and be fully transparent with them. My last piece of advice when it comes to surrounding yourself with the right people, don't compromise. Don't compromise. If you find a red flag especially when it comes to investors and money, if you see a red flag, call it out. If you have any doubts whatsoever, call it out and walk away. It's better to walk away than to get into something that you've compromised on. And I've done this before. I've got personal experience about this, compromised on, and then it comes to bite you in the ass a couple of years later because you're ignorant and my wife always calls it the engagement syndrome. When a couple gets engaged, the wedding starts getting planned like next. It's what happens when people come to you and go, you know what, you're really good at what you do. They plug your ego and they're like, I just want to give you some money. I want to invest in you. I want to give you some money for like a restaurant business and stuff like that. So keep in mind, don't compromise. Like if it's your dream, it has to be your dream. It has to be the way you want it. And that's the biggest thing. Once you start compromising with people who have got power over you because they're giving you the money, that's where you can get really screwed. So on that note, guys, thanks always for support. Chat to you really soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening, Pose Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and peers and just chatting about the industry and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's really going on out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, everything on all the platforms. Just hit it up and I'll do my best to answer any queries or questions you have. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.